Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're starting a series covering Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, which I mispronounced as Susuna's Sacrifice very often. It could be Senua's Sacrifice too. It might be, we'll have to wait until we hear something. This is a 2017 game from Ninja Theory, who made a PlayStation 3 game called Heavenly Sword that was really nice. Unfortunately, never got ported to PC, so you can't play that. It made Enslaved Odyssey to the West. The reboot, now abandoned, of DMC Devil May Cry. And really, Ninja Theory is, before Heavenly Sword, made Kung Fu Chaos, and now they're working towards a sequel to this game. Being a 2017 game, I'm playing this relatively early. It is certainly because there's a sequel soon to be released for it. This game is very much about the experience, and I've tried to keep myself mostly pure and unknowing as far as the story, but I do know that it is going to be a harrowing, emotionally difficult experience for Suna, and there's at least a way in which you could interpret the story as just happening in her own mind and not being taken literally. This game also is probably at the tip of the spear for games that have the Viking Celtic mythos as a big focus. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Now, there is this feature, but then it immediately tells you that there are spoilers, so you don't want to look at that. I use the NVIDIA settings, which turned the resolution to even higher than 1080p, and then I turned it back down to 1080p. Since there's just not enough bandwidth and hard drive space for me, I just don't have it. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to record the game at a higher resolution and then just upload it as a 1080p, or more accurately, it doesn't make sense for the game to be allowed to be rendered at a higher resolution just to be downscaled to 1080p, which is what my OBS recording software is set to. Otherwise, though, I shouldn't really have any real problems. Everything is set to very high. I turned off VSync because I don't feel like that's useful when you're recording. At the very beginning of the game, it asks you to adjust the gamma. I'm leaving it here. There is definitely like an argument that maybe I should turn it up to this. This is bad instructions. Let's just in case you're not seeing the one on the left, let's go all the way up to the top. So I didn't even think for a second that there was anything there. By default, it is pitch black on my monitor. Like, the monitor I'm using is fairly old, and so the brightness is, I have realized, is pretty bad when I installed my second monitor and realized how bright that was. So I do need to adjust the brightness, which that is probably good for everybody. So we'll adjust that. I wasn't going to do that. Controls wise, we can see that there is a fast strike, heavy strike, melee, evade, and block, which is surprising to me because I thought most of this game is not actually an action game, which that would be the one outstanding difference between this and like Heavenly Sword, is that this was very much more a almost walking simulator with a good story and good visuals, which is an interesting idea. There is no way to turn off the binaural audio that it recommends. It recommends everybody wear a headphone while playing this game. I have headphones, of course, because I'm recording, so I'm set there, but people watching on a mono speaker on their cell phones probably are going to miss out on some of the audio. Combat difficulty is set to auto, which I guess we can leave it there. Photo mode is off. Probably wouldn't want that in the first play. I turned on subtitles, And that's pretty much all we have to set up with. Now, before we jump in, I don't want to meander too much here in this series, but I want to look to the right at the face of this character. This character's face looks very, very good for a 2017 game. It was very well regarded and awarded for looking very, very good. It was done using facial capture of an actress. But there is the problem always of the uncanny valley. And when I look at the nose on this face, in points it looks a little waxy. It looks kind of like you're looking at a baby doll's face, a plastic doll's face, not a human face. It's uncanny because they're not blinking, whereas you would potentially want to take this to the next level and have them just blink while doing this. And frankly, had you just looped video instead of doing a still image that has some visual effects happening around the edges, that might be better. Arguably, because the facial capture then is just getting a artificial texture put on top of those points that are scanned via facial capture, you have a very unnatural face for the time and for the age of the character. We're not seeing wrinkles. We're not seeing whiskers. Like, even women, you know, they get the occasional whisker here and there. You're not seeing any kind of scars or blemish or anything like that. And this is a face that's all painted up and has mud on it, but it's so artistically placed that it does have kind of that uncanny valley problem if you try to look at it too much. And that will probably always be the case until we get to a point where we can just literally scan human faces to such a level of detail that the human eye cannot distinguish a difference, and you can stop an artist from thinking they can improve on nature, which is often an obsession that artists get into, is that they think they can improve on nature when trying to make something look natural. But, you know, that's about all I can say, so let's just start into the game. Again, deep psychological horror here for Halloween month is what I think this game has to offer. So, if anything, it's kind of a feminine horror story where it's about the emotions more than the monsters.
Doesn't matter. Welcome. You're safe with me. I'll be right here, nice and close, so I can speak without alerting the others. Let me tell you about Senua. Her story has already come to an end, but now it begins anew.
So does she have like a head?
It's breathing. It's breathing. He knows she's getting closer. He can feel her coming closer. She's getting closer. They're watching. They're watching. They're watching.
This is a journey deep into darkness. There will be no more stories after this one.
What is she doing? Why is she doing this? They're watching. Why doesn't she turn coming? She's doing this for him. She wants to rescue him. He's already dead.
I can feel you coming. Quiet. Oh, how rude of me. I never told you of the others. You hear them too, right? They've been around ever since the tragedy. Well, that's not quite true. Some are old, some are new, but they've changed. I think the darkness changed them, just like it changed her.
I'm not touching the controller at this point. All of this is just a cutscene.
Can you see them? Over there. Why isn't she looking? Why aren't you looking?
He's in Helheim.
Oh, I can control.
You see it too?
You promised you came.
Yes. It is real after all. She's finally arrived in the land of mist and fog. The place the Northmen call Hell.
So,
Go back.
subtitles not doing every single voice. Only doing some of them, which is weird. It's funny that they would have a mental health advisor, but I understand it certainly immediately. She clearly is suffering from hearing voices, schizophrenia. Although, is it a magical schizophrenia or just a normal schizophrenia?
The drowned, the sick, the slain. Here they lie, rotting in the fields and rivers of hell. But the dead don't always lie still here.
I'm not sure if I can handle this frame rate. Like,
They're going to do that to you. Can you see them? Can you see them? They're going to do that to you.
so one of the things to mention here is hell is where all Vikings who don't die are in either childbirth for women or battle for men or some other noble way end up. Not particularly the same like Judeo-Christian hell or Christian hell. It just kind of the same name with one L.
I can tell you.
Now I can't control anything with the left stick at the moment, so all I can do is move the camera.
You'd think she would get used to it by now after so many years.
This is a long intro.
But the darkness, it just builds onto itself, growing stronger, towering over her.
Some of this should be scripted
Turn away.
looks instead of having the
It's always
controller,
there, just out of sight.
the player,
When you're
choose.
most vulnerable. It's like it knows that just enough light is all you need to see its suffocating power.
There is a huge danger, certainly, and I can see the warnings with having voices and binaural audio play in the ears of any player.
You might
Even
think she's
someone
brave
who
to go on this journey on
has
her own.
never thought for a second that
It's
they might
bravery that drives
suffer
her.
from schizophrenia or hearing voices or any other mental
Bravery only
problem.
means something to those afraid of
Like,
death.
it is the danger, like hearing about night terrors is the thing that seems to trigger night terrors, is other people telling you about night terrors. A like mental virus, as it were. Like insanity at being depicted can trigger it in others. So yeah, you have to be careful about that. Now, at certain points, there is also an argument that artists shouldn't have to worry about any of that. And an artist should be free to create whatever they want. But I can applaud people trying to be responsible.
What is she leaving behind? I know what she's thinking. I hear her thoughts. It's not too late to get into the boat and go back.
That was a
No one will
log.
judge her. No one will ever know. Oh, she heard us.
There's no going back.
I guess it was a boat.
You can't do it.
Senua pushes away a world that conspired to cause so much suffering. There's nothing to go back to, and worse to look forward to. Why don't you join us? Maybe you too have a part to play in this story.
It is weird, certainly, to think that you are just going to be a voice in her head controlling her. Also, it would be very weird to have kind of that third person narrative Let's see. None of the buttons are doing anything right now. Here we've got some speared people in lots of different ways. One, you would assume that this now is, there's just like a direct connection in which she found a way from a magical place, from the real world to a magical place like hell.
Focus. Look closer. Look. Use your eyes. Why isn't she looking closer? She needs to look closer. Focus.
Okay, that's the right trigger.
Do not forget my stories, Senua, because your darkness comes from hell, and your fate lies there. They say the burning of a corpse will take you straight to Hela's gate, but gods and the living will follow this path. You must leave the Isles of Orkney across the eastern sea and find a road that leads north and down through deep, dark valleys.
So you don't have to
After 9
zoom
nights
in.
of riding, you will follow a great river and will find a bridge covered in gold. The path to Helheim goes from there, across the river of knives that flows from the dark world of Niflheim.
So the problem is that it seems like she is just kind of not mentally there so much. When you kind of look at her face, she's not really emoting or reacting. And so she's looking at that, but how do you unfocus?
Do not forget my stories, Senua, because your darkness comes from hell, and your fate lies there.
I guess you just walk
They
around.
say the burning of a corpse
Oops.
will take you straight to Hela's gate, but gods and the living will follow this path. You must leave the Isles of Orkney across the eastern sea.
So
Find a road
I
that
suppose you
leads
were
north
supposed to have done this
through deep
and walked while it... Oh, you heard.
9 nights of riding. You will follow a great river.
We can see how reality seems to be kind of breaking up.
Darkness is coming. Yearns for life. Hungers for it. Like a pack of wolves on a hunt. But she's not stopping.
Okay, can I pick up this torch? No. I know there's a point where you do pick up a torch, and originally in the game there was a way in which you could die and then not be able to access the torch, and you would soft lock yourself.
Not this time.
The danger here with a game like this compared to Heavenly Sword is Heavenly Sword jumped you into the action very quickly, whereas the action in this game is going to be the emotional experience. Interesting. All of a sudden that triggered some new actions.
The land of mist and fog.
Was not expecting that.
Fool was right. What was it he said? The river of knives across which lies the halls of hell. The place they call Helheim.
He's lost. He's lost. Where are you? I hear you.
Seems like the head is talking to her.
He's there, you know it.
There's no doubt about it.
He's lost.
The source of the darkness is in Helheim, and the goddess Hela holds his soul there.
Helheim and Hell, the same Hela, a person.
Beloved, Dillian.
Yeah, and that took a while to load back to let you play it after that cutscene. That was kind of too much of a load. I have an SSD, and I'm playing this on 1080p. They should run a little bit smoother, and I think that's Ninja Theory's problem, certainly, that they'll have to try and address is to make a game that is smoother.
She wants his soul to be at.
What is she looking at? Like,
He's already dead. She can save him. There's nothing she can do.
I don't know what I'm
She's not going to save him.
supposed to be doing, because it seems like
She can't let him rot here.
it's like inverted controls. Heavenly Sword had a scene that was very much like this too.
Bridge to Helheim. I forget its name. She forgets too. But she does remember that only the dead may cross it.
Hmm.
That part wasn't so easy to forget.
Yeah, both DMC
Fool said there was a
and
hidden path up to it.
Heavenly Sword both
Let's see,
had
shall we?
heavy button mashing action concepts. I assume we're going towards this red. There's just some weirdness when you look in a direction. She just kind of walks side straddle, where I'm used to games letting you look around with the head not following as a camera, particularly since we're in a third person perspective, where that would make a lot of sense. If this was a first person perspective, that would be less of an issue. But we're like 20 minutes in here, and all we've done is walk and listen to people talk.
The Northmen speak of 9 worlds. The world of men they call Midgard. Sky gods dwell in Asgard.
They're gonna have to
Gods of
explain
earth, heart,
basically
wind, and sea.
Viking
Vanaheim.
mythology.
The good elves
For those who
dwell in
don't know.
Alfheim. The evil ones dwell in Svartalfheim. The mountain giants dwell in Jotunheim. The fire giants dwell in Muspelheim. Niflheim is the world of ice and darkness. Only the dead dwell in Helheim. And that is where you must travel.
Here we have a different movement mechanic walking across the board. Wonder if you could just turn. This is pretty, but it's also kind of dark. It feels like you're gonna
What's she waiting for?
get a very different experience
Where are we?
compared to a character like
She can't go back now.
like Far Cry Primal, for instance, or Horizon Zero Dawn, have similar looking characters who are much more action and adventure, fun loving characters from the general first appearance. Whereas Senua here is designed to look very much like she's been beaten up and war torn and struggled. Interesting. We're walking slowly towards it with the left stick.
Don't kill me. I'm not one of them. I was just hiding. I find I live longer that way. Never let the bastards catch me again. Never! Wait. Who are you? It's just a memory.
Druth? Is that you?
For my tales of the Northmen, they call me Druth. A liar
kept your vow.
guide you in this life and the next.
Hmm.
I will tell you my stories of hell, if I may walk with you.
So
Your stories again, old friend. I'm listening.
I'm wondering if Suna does have the ability to see the dead or interact with hell.
Focus your inner eye, and you too will see what's hidden in plain sight.
Look, really?
It also could be that Druce was
Focus.
abusing her and using her.
If you focus.
I can see one.
Hold it in your mind's eye. Find one like it to open the gate.
So we're looking for an M-shaped rune. Okay, and so when you zoom in, it's like around the edges, there seems to be a shape that you have to kind of line up. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right or if I need to turn around completely. I guess you are supposed to be looking for it somewhere else. Interesting. So, very simplistic gameplay.
You're not safe.
Oh, there's a symbol.
It's near.
Interesting.
Focus, and you will find it.
Like, this is very simplistic gameplay compared to what you would find
Towards the gate. And the gate?
of like DMC, Devil May Cry. Or Heavenly Sword. Even Enslaved Odyssey to West, which was kind of rough on its gameplay mechanics, was not anywhere.
The gate is open. Go through the gate.
Go through it. It's dangerous.
It was not anywhere as simplistic as this gameplay. But they certainly sold it on that aspect. This was a game that definitely said
Spent 6
they're not
years
going to
enslaved in hell.
spend a lot of time putting generic grindy gameplay into it,
Their ways
because they wanted to tell a story and do a different type of art.
when everyone else laughed. My people paid the heavy price. Carry my stories with you, and together we will make the Northmen feel our fury.
So it seems like Suna is probably Celtic,
Joins us.
and the Northmen
She
are
wants to make them
probably
go away.
more Vikings,
They weren't real.
or maybe the Northmen or something else.
When we are always here.
It's making you look down, so if you had any vertigo issues or fear of height issues, they're trying to play on that. Although I find in video games, succeeding at that does not work until you have like VR, particularly third-person perspective again. That's going to be an issue. I suppose we could see if there was any way to go to first-person perspective, but yeah, there's nothing of that unless this is what photo mode does. Nope. You could be slightly more over the shoulder with it. Now this is the third
Yes,
time,
it's the
so
same with heights.
this probably breaks at this point.
Stand on the edge. Pretend it's going to be okay. But you know that death is near. Waiting for you to make that little slip.
And the problem here is at any
Can't
point
just wish things away.
the story could be that she fell to her death, and the rest of this is happening in her dying memory or dying thoughts as a Jacob's Ladder scenario. Interesting. It seems like this is going to light up a rune every time you find one, and it's basically telling you with the dots how many runes are in each section. And so it's basically telling you how many sections there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections. Some of them seem to be fairly short, probably more boss fight sections.
The world of the dead is ruled by the giantess, Hela, daughter of Loki. The gods feared her bloodline, bad on her mother's side and yet much worse on her father's. So, as a child, the All-Father cast her down into Helheim and gave her power over those who die of sickness, age, hardship, and self-slaughter. In all of the 9 worlds, only Hela can resurrect the dead. To Hela, your Dillion was sacrificed, and with her you must bargain.
This feels like a game that should have a flashlight, but there's no logical way in which you would have a flashlight, so we will get to torches. This also feels like it's doing a lot of the shenanigans that the Tomb Raider reboot games do, where it tries to make things very pretty, but then it has to hide loading screens through a lot of different areas, through crawling through tunnels.
Stay back. Look at it. You have to open it.
The gate to Helheim divides the living from the dead. Is that the face of Hela herself? The half-rotten goddess that rules over Helheim. Whatever horrors lie behind that door,
Not controlling this.
she must find him.
It's kind of funny. It's going into a video graphics engine, cutscene engine, to show us this, and frankly, the graphics don't look very different from the gameplay engine. In a funny way, this is very much like a Telltale game, if a Telltale game had actual budget to make things look good.
You took him from me. I beg you. Let him go.
Scenes like this were probably in the trailer
I'll give you what you want.
and could have been the vast majority of the game.
Resist anymore. Just give him back.
I wouldn't be surprised if we are playing as Helheim and Senua is like the daughter of Helheim. See, where Telltale chose not to have any gameplay, they've got a standard kind of just sword and hack and slash setup. With kicking abilities. And you can see these are druids, or druid-looking characters. It seems like it's fairly adaptive button presses because I'm just kind of button mashing. It is very possible that
There's too many of them. Find a good position. Don't let them.
I can't. I think the game wanted me to lose there.
Don't
Am I supposed to be pressing some kind of buttons or what? Like, I don't see how I wasn't going to succeed there. And see, that darkness may very well have been memories of her memories of her slaughtering other people.
Of what's to come. Poor Senua. The darkness does not bargain. It does not reason. It is rot. And now it has taken hold.
Totally need
It will
a
spread towards her
subtitles
head,
on in this.
the seat of the soul, until there is nothing left of her. All of her suffering will have been for nothing. It's just
It's weird to have this red symbol in the background. The dark rot will grow each time you fail. If the rot reaches Senua's head, her quest is over. And all progress will be lost. I think this is probably a false threat from the game.
The hardest battles are fought in the mind. That is what Dillian taught her. With every defeat, the dark rot will grow and soon it will take her soul. But for now, at least, she still has control of her mind. And she will fulfill her vow, whatever the cost.
The thing that I feel like I take from this is that they definitely wanted to put out trailers of BNC hyper realistic facial scan and graphics, and that probably blew the budget as far as putting
the god of fire, Zurt, and the god of illusion, Valravan, spill their blood to open the gate to Helheim and enter the land of the dead.
So yeah, seems like they're putting kind of generic,
She needs to challenge the gods.
She has to fight two gods first.
like generic
Gates.
gameplay mechanics.
She's going to die.
Which one will she challenge first?
Be very careful, Senua.
Choose a gate, Senua.
Two gates.
I doubt this is like Mega Man, where if you choose.
The fire giant has answered. He comes from a land older than mankind, and the Northmen call upon his flaming sword to raise their enemies to the ground. Find him, Senua, and spill his blood.
She found the wretched old fool on her way back from the wilds. Now
So,
it's badly burnt all over,
unlike a Telltale game, though, this really is just going to be narration.
for he was not long for this world.
I feel like the game of Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons
Who spoke
was
of so
somewhat
darkness,
similar
the
to
Northmen.
this, and if they're going to start splitting paths and with this slow ability, I did see in the option there was a run toggle, and I can't help but feel like there's probably a decision here where I would want to run and toggle it. We have barrels. So we got all three in the first section.
The Northmen tell this story.
And we are now
Before
in
the
a
Earth was created,
different section.
there was a world called Muspel. Because it was in the south, it was bright and hot, flaming, burning. Sparks that flew out from Muspel became the stars. Other sparks
You
melted
can't really
ice
walk in a
frozen
lot of
world
places.
Niflheim, creating the body of the first giant, Ymir. Muspel is one of the 9 worlds, and is now the land of the fire giants. People elsewhere cannot endure a journey there.
Wow. Okay, so if you run away from them, you will get far enough away from them where you can't hear them. Interesting. So, on top of the game having fairly generic gameplay mechanics with a few fights, there's also a situation where you're going to have to walk slowly.
Senua, we each walk these lands gazing towards different horizons, some of us further than others. Your father cannot see what you see, but there is nothing wrong with seeing the world the way you do.
So, there are other things you can focus on. For instance, faces of what I assume is your mother. And you're getting some more backstory that she does have a special visions, which you can either chalk up to magical powers or insanity. I feel like there's a high chance we're going to get a bit of a bait and switch here at the end to have a sequel to this game, which we know a sequel's in the works, when really there probably shouldn't have been a sequel to this game. But yeah, Telltale doesn't narrate things. And zooming in and looking at other things does not trigger any visions. She has some kind of mirror, it looks like, on her side. Which they... And see, I don't like this idea that you're gonna potentially have these scars on these creatures. I wonder if it would have been a cool feature that she could have sliced the runes directly onto the flesh of them.
They surrounded you. You won.
When it screamed you won there, I would have thought that meant you won. For real. Otherwise, it seems like what you're really doing here is just in an area where you're going to constantly get attacked. Alright, well, if that's a gate, then what's up here? Seeming like nothing. Alright. I think I figured out how this game really wants you to play it. Can't jump down on ledges. There definitely is a situation here where I could only tolerate a game like this in a very rare occasion.
I can still smell it.
Hmm. Like, if most games were just going to narrate to you, that would not be acceptable. If most games are going to have you, just walk very slowly and really not interact with too
I heard
much.
their screams, and I still hear them now.
And I imagine Ninja Theory, a certain level, if they could have gotten the budget, would have had this been just like an anime instead of a video game. So that's the N. Now we're looking for a Y. Which, I mean, if you put a tree in the middle there, you kind of get a Y. There, that was what they were looking for. So it was a tree in front of the
The path to Helheim is sealed to the living,
Y.
but you already walk amongst the dead. Look towards the gate, and you will see that it has opened.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's a lot of opportunity for different choices. I don't think we're going to beat a boss and find that we can spare or kill them, which that would be a very old-fashioned way of having multiple choices in a game.
When they first came to my lands, I knew
The
nothing
sales
of
pitch
the
definitely
begs
was
mercy.
that Ninja Theory was doing what Ninja Theory wanted to do here, and they were trying to break the mold.
Slaughtered me like the others.
Although, in a lot of ways, they've broke the mold and not replace it with much of anything.
This darkness you speak of?
I know it well.
And I'm still here to fight it.
Yeah, and as a video game critic, as somebody who criticizes interactive media, when you're given something that is not that interactive, it's hard to criticize this. I really feel like a lot of video game critics would probably fall into the mistake of over proselytizing a game like this because it has a decent story daring to tell a tale that we just don't see in a serious way. We've had plenty of crazy characters before, but it was always done in a silly comedic way, not in a serious or dramatic way. But as far as the interactivity, slowly walking, solving vision puzzles, and a generic countering system is not much. How am I supposed to not let them get behind me or surround me? Like, first of all, two of them seem to have a different attack, which either I need to press the A button a lot more. I probably need to counter with the Y attack after that point. So, and that was a unblockable attack. And so we'll have to remember that. And it seems like you have no health bar or anything like that, so just be aware of that.
When you see a fire gate of Surt, know that only a sacrifice will stoke the fires of Muspel and let the dead walk through. Find the fire, Senua, to follow the path to Surt.
Well, there's fire right here. Just kick it. Didn't we come this way? So is this bodies we're about to start on fire? Looks like it is. Feels like our path has changed. And that the world is changing around us. Wow, you're just standing directly on the fire. So, is this a memory where there was a fire in the village? Did she start it? There's a person made out of ash pointing. There's another person made of ash, and then we passed out. Was that intentional, or did I just not run fast enough? Wow. Just like a total crash. Maybe I ran out of hard drive space? Nope. Well, that should have not happened. It says load fast error or something like that. I can't even read what the little error box is. Well, I think this is as good of a point as any to end this episode. We'll have to see if we're starting the whole game over, or which wouldn't make any sense because we've seen the game is saving, and so we'll probably just auto load. I think it's very possible I need to turn down the difficulty to something easier, probably just easy is options, because frankly it's just wasting everybody's time to have to do the fighting sections. This game does not strike me as a very long game, which is going to be a bit of a bummer because I think I probably paid a fairly high premium for this game just to play it somewhat new. We would definitely want to see more gameplay mechanics in the sequel at this rate, but there's still a lot of opportunity for the story to grab me, and I hope that happens, because that is going to be the linchpin of this game. Is if I find the story somewhat mediocre, I'm not going to enjoy it. There's nothing else really to criticize in the game from what we can tell. I already think the puzzles and the fighting are superfluous, so it's all going to hang on the quality of the story. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.